What's up, everybody? This is episode 127 of Hoops Talk with Dave's Joint. Shout outs to everybody that's been supporting us thus far. For those who haven't seen any of our episodes, go check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and IGTV. But before we start, we gotta pay some bills real quick. So this episode is sponsored by the Players Circle. I discovered the Players Circle in the App Store when trying to find a product to track athletes. The Players Circle is a social video platform where players can share their stats, highlights, and accomplishments. So if you can hoop and you want to get discovered, join the Player Circle right now. It's on the App Store. Go check this out. But, tonight, guys, we have a very special guest. He hails from Boston, Massachusetts, and he's the director and coach of one of the hottest independent AAU teams as we speak, the team Spartans. So without further ado, we have Mr. Joe Chapman in the building tonight. Coach, thank you for coming on to share your story.
Hey, thank you for having me, buddy. It's a pleasure. We've been a fan of yours for a while from afar, buddy.
Indeed. So yeah, my very first question for you is, what's Joe Chapman's coaching philosophy?
Joe Chapman's coaching philosophy. I would describe it, man, as somebody who really wants the best for kids first. You know what I mean? I get after it with our guys, but I feel like when you have relationships with your kids and your kids know that you have your best interests at hand, they play hard for you. And that's the biggest thing for me because I'm demanding, you know what I mean? And I really make sure that the kids are pushing themselves beyond even what they think. Because sometimes I think with young men and women, I think that they push themselves until they're comfortable, right? They never push themselves out of their comfort zone. So that's one of the things that I think, we've done a good job at over the years is getting kids to buy into how we play. And as you see, the results have been pretty good so far. So hopefully we can continue to do that.
Indeed. So let's talk about, when did basketball first begin for you?
So the program or me individually?
You individually.
I started playing ball, man, when I was about 6 years old. I grew up in, obviously, Boston, Mass, Columbia Point section of Dorchester. It's a project where, all you could really do was play basketball, go to school, and, typical childhood, you know what I mean, had distractions around me, but basketball was something I really took a liking to early. And I would just play every day, every day. There was no like private trainers and all this stuff you see now. There wasn't this, large conglomerate of AAU, fall, winter, summer. It was just go outside, you hoop against the older guys, you get beat up a little bit, you go back the next day, and you keep grinding and getting better. And then I would say by the time I was about 12 to 13 years old, I really started to feel like I was separating myself a little bit from the competition just because I just worked and loved the game. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And from there, it just took off from, middle school to high school to college.
Indeed. So, what was the basketball culture like in Dorchester and just Boston period? What was it like growing up in Columbia Point?
Well, first of all, growing up in the projects, man, it's never easy. There's so many different distractions and things that go on around you, and you got to be, mentally tough to deal with some of the stuff that goes on around you. You know what I mean? So, but I'm not gonna sit there and act like everything was all bad because it's what you make it. You know what I mean? I love my neighborhood. I love where I come from, and because it's made me who I am.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of basketball in this city, I know you're a New York guy, and
Mm-hmm.
Chicago and LA, y'all, get the rep y'all deserve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you guys are big time back. But if people really dive into the history of Boston basketball, they'll realize, man, that for a city that's a little smaller than you guys, we've had some legendary guys come out of here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a basketball city first. I know people think baseball because of the Red Sox and because of, you know what I mean, the sports teams around here from a college standpoint are really good baseball wise, but This is a basketball city first. We really take pride in our ball. We have arguably the best prep school, you know what I mean, basketball in the country. And then our city basketball is getting better because kids are just starting to understand that, basketball is global now. So you got to play every day. before in the city, kids would just go to your neighborhood rec centers or go outside the hoop. And it's like that ain't good enough because there's a kid in Europe or a kid in Africa who's going to basketball school. You know what I mean? Them kids go to basketball schools where they study 2-3 hours a day, and then they're hooping 7-8 hours a day. Then they go to study hall, and then they're back at team practice that night. So, just in this city, everybody is always looking to challenge themselves, though. You know what I mean? And I wish that our city as a whole got more credit for basketball because, you know what I mean, right now we got 8 guys in the NBA. You know what I mean? Whether it's Bruce Brown from Dorchester, Shabazz from Roxbury, Nerlens Noel's from Boston. You know what I mean? George Niang for the Utah Jazz. So we got some guys, you know what I mean, in the city that could play. It's just now people are starting to take heed of it when, honestly, I think the city's been doing well for years now. It's just outside of the Boston shootouts, we never really had a big attraction.
Right. Yeah, man, no doubt. And shout out to my guy, Joe Almeida. He definitely represents for Boston heavy. Like every time, you know what I'm saying? Like every time I'm on his page, like he's showing like basically Boston as I never saw it before. You know what I'm saying? Like that right there is big. Like it shows there's a lot of history. Even way before BABC or Expressions or all the other programs. Like there's been a history in Boston.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like
yes,
yeah, man. Definitely gotta show love to the Beantown.
Yes, sir. It has.
So when you were a kid, you were a Celtics fan, correct?
Yes, sir.
So yeah, who did you grow up idolizing that played?
I'm sorry, say that again.
So yeah, as a kid, who did you grow up idolizing that wore the green and gold?
For me, this is gonna sound funny to you, but I really wasn't a Celtic fan growing up. My dad forced me to be a Laker fan because he loved Magic Johnson. Basketball jersey I'll never forget was a Magic Johnson because my dad was a big show. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Can you hear me? I can hear you perfectly. So I was saying the first guy that I really started to like as a Celtic beat was Reggie Lewis. Reggie Lewis was the guy around there. Obviously, he passed away prematurely. Obviously, everybody knows Reggie's story, but if you really pay attention to the game, man, and that brother was coming into his own. He was an all-star in '92, went at Jordan. I mean, he was one of the best wings in the league. And unfortunately, he had he prematurely passed away. So Reggie Lewis, to answer your question, was the first Celtic that I started to like.
Yeah, man. Rest in peace, Reggie Lewis. I even watched the Dunbar Poets documentary. Like he was good. Absolutely. He was too good to be a 6th man on that team.
Absolutely. Think about that. Crazy. He was a 6th man, Dave. So how good was that high school team, right?
National champions, to be exact. Muggsy Bogues, Reggie Williams, David Wingate.
Right? Who's the boy that started at Georgetown? Was it Reggie Jackson?
Williams.
Reggie Williams. I mean, they were loaded, man.
Yeah. No doubt, man. So, moving forward, what were some of the tournaments that you loved playing in as a youth?
Oh man, in the city there's a event called the Jamal Jackson Play It Safe. He was a guy from our city, from Mission Hill Project to be exact, that passed away.
Yeah.
Pretty early. He was murdered or whatever. But back in 91, 92, no, 93, 95. I believe. Was it 95, Jamal? Yeah, 95, yes. So ever since then, there's been a league in the city called Play It Safe, which is a Stop the Violence league. Right. And that was always been one of the best. You named all the guys that ever came out of being that I've always thought in my era were real serious, whether it was Mike Jones, Mike McGee, Will Blaylock, cousin Antonio Chapman, Rashid Al-Klameen, you know what I mean? Steve Haley, you name it, these guys played in that. BNBL in our cities, actually not just our city, but now there's summer leagues in every city, but BNBL was the first summer league in an urban city in the country. That's obviously was obviously something we took pride in as a city, because it was something that, city bragging rights. So play it safe, BNBL, and I would definitely say something called the Round Ball Classic, but actually started in New York, and we brought it to Boston, and I guess Tiny Archibald, from what I understand, brought it to Boston back in the late 70s, early 80s. So that's something that's ran at the Lee School by a guy named Eric Bradshaw is taking that league over. He's a well-known cop in the city that does a great job with the youth in terms of basketball. He's a well-known coach, youth league coach in the city. So those are the three ones I give you at the top of my head.
Indeed. So, moving forward, what were in high school? Where did you attend high school at?
I went to Boston College High School, which is across the street from my projects. It was a very, very, very tough academic school, but I wouldn't be who I am without BCI. You know what I mean? It really grounded me because I went from seeing one side of the world, right, or one side of the only world I knew, but then going to a predominantly white school that, with kids that really didn't struggle for money, and people that just cared about you though, for the most part, and helped me from a basketball standpoint, right? But more so from a social standpoint. It prepared me for college more than, I realized back then, but now I knew. And then now I know, I should say. And then from a basketball standpoint, we dominated. We dominated from a basketball standpoint. Our conference, which was the Catholic conference, we won every year that I was there. And then, we were number one team in the state 2 years in a row and fell short of the state title. That's my only regret as a high school player. I scored 1,000 points, got 1,000 assists. You know what I mean? Was an all-scholastic high school ball player, played scholarship basketball, but I never delivered the state title like I should have. So it still haunts me to this day, man.
Yeah, man. Shout outs to the Boston College High School graduating class of 2003.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now,
yes, sir.
What was your collegiate recruiting looking like in high school?
So, what's crazy about that was I never knew, right, that there was a such thing as post-grading. So my senior year, I was being recruited by, mid and low majors, particularly Sacred Heart, Central Connecticut, BU, Hartford, all the local schools from basically, New England and right outside New England, New York even, were recruiting me. But the biggest thing they wanted to see from me was they wanted to see me get a little stronger. And they just thought that if I did a postgraduate year at Tilton, that it would benefit me. So I was, shocked when I didn't get a scholarship right out of BC High. Yeah. When I didn't get a scholarship out of BC High because, I was a top 5 player in the state. Dave.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And I was a guy that my record, my junior and senior year in high school, we won 43 games, lost 3. I was a number 1 team, in the state. So your ego gets the best of you sometimes. I'm not going to lie. And I was a little hurt that I didn't get what I thought I deserved, right? So make a long story short, I ended up doing a post-grad year at Tilton. And it was the best decision of my life because I got a chance to play against the Brewsters, the New Hamptons, you know what I mean? The Northfield Hermans, the Worcester Academies. And it prepared me for the grind of college basketball. I didn't get that at BC High like I wanted to. Simply not because the competition wasn't good enough, but just simply from a physical standpoint, night in and night out, you're not playing against a 6'2" guard that's going to pressure you full court. You're not playing against 6'9", 6'10", 6'11" bigs that are going to challenge you at the rim. So that's what the colleges want to see me do a little bit better. And that's something that I had to learn how to do, to be honest with you. That's why I needed that postgraduate year.
So, yeah, the Tilton School. Basically, yeah, that's the school where Nerlens Noel went to and Georges Niang.
You got it.
Wow.
You got it. Wayne Selden. We got a history. Yep. Wayne Selden went there. Yep. A lot of Boston legends went there.
Yeah, man. So when did UMass Lowell come into play?
So UMass Lowell was actually late because I honestly, we heart was set on going to Sacred Heart. Dave Bike, retired coach there. The Keith Bike, his son, was a head assistant. He recruited me hard. Johnny Kidd recruited me hard, and I was going. And you know, before I signed my letter of intent, UMass Lowell jumped in, and I went on my visit there, Dave, and I was wild. You know, honestly, it gave me a chance to kind of, let me put it this way. It gave me a chance to realize, like, man, listen, you could play at a one level and play a little closer to home. You know what I mean? Like that's my grandmother and my mom's dream. My pops was locked up at the time. So for me, it was all about playing in front of my grandmothers and my mom as much as I could. Right. And being 40 minutes north of Boston at Lowell, it gave me that opportunity. And they recruited me hard. And, you know, especially I want to say the latter part of my postgraduate at Tilton, I went on my visit, Dave, and, you know, Coach Jeff Raftery, who's at NJIT, is the head assistant at NJIT right now. You know, they brought me up on a visit. They told me I would have a chance to come in and start. They didn't say I would, right? I don't want to misconstrue that, but they told me I was going to come and have a chance to go in and compete. And they gave me the opportunity, man. And, you know, I was blessed to have it.
Wow. So wait, was UMass Lowell D2 at the time or D1?
Yes, D2. We were making a transition from moving out of D2 to D1, but they knew that. So at that point, they were recruiting guys that they felt like were mid to low major guys. And that's kind of how that happened.
Wow. So talk about your 2 years at BC. No, I'm sorry, at UMass Lowell.
So it was great, man. I honestly loved it there. I wouldn't take anything back from it. The one thing I regret is the fact that I didn't stay with my teammates and finish what we started, because I thought we could have won a national championship. But, you know, between the politics of college basketball and then my coach leaving and then, you know, me not really feeling kind of the way things were going, you know what I mean? I decided to leave. But the run we were going to go on, man, the run we had, you know, my freshman year, it was special.
Yeah, most definitely. So, your school that you ended up graduating from, talk about
Leslie.
Yeah, Leslie U.
Yep. So my coach at Tilton Prep got the job at Leslie. That's what made that. That's the truth on what happened there. There was never any intention on going to Leslie. My coach got that job, and I knew what he was going to do for me. I knew what he was going to do for the athletic program, and I know what kind of man he is. So it made the transition easy for me. And, you know, there I, you know, became an All-American. I became an all-conference guy, and, you know, was able to really put myself in position. If I really, really went, you know, super hard with it, you know, I could have stayed in Sweden, where I had a little deal out there for 6 months. But one thing they don't tell you about, you know, playing overseas, Dave, is it's just, if you've never been across the water, and I've never been, it's a lifestyle change, my brother. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm serious, man. Like,
I heard
there were
those
things
stories
going on there, bro. Yeah, man. There were things going on there that I was just like, yo, if I'm not making, you know what I mean, 6 or 7 figures, man, like, is this really worth it for me? Right. You know what I mean? Like, being away from your family, the grind of like living a completely different life than you're used to in the States. Just knowing that I had a contract, my brother, and just knowing that I could have played professionally, that was good enough for me, man. It was time for me to just make the solid transition to just say, man, I'm good. Because I spent, you know, 3 weeks over there, and it was just, yeah, it was very different. Put it like that, man.
Well, first and foremost, shout outs to the Leslie U graduating class of 2008.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. A lot of good people there.
A kid from Columbia Point got that college degree.
Absolutely. They don't make it where I'm from, man. You know what I mean? We don't get a chance to say that often. So I hope I made my neighborhood and my family proud of doing that. And I hope that, you know, there's more brothers that come from what we come from that understand the importance of that degree.
Facts. Like, I'm in the same boat because I come from a neighborhood in the South Bronx called the Diego Beekman houses, and
Yes, sir.
I'm from a neighborhood with a 4% graduation rate. So,
Yes, sir.
and sad, like, I've seen the young people get old. I've seen the old people grow older. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying?
sir.
Like, a lot of people I think about, they it's like their motto is like, I've raised my kid, I grew up here, I raised my kids here, and I'm gonna die here.
Yes, sir.
Me, I don't want that, I don't want that to be my story. Cause I
Yes, sir.
see at some point, I'm gonna move, but I'm gonna take whatever lessons I've learned in life from living here with me
Absolutely.
wherever I go. But I'm also gonna inspire the youth, no matter what. You know
Absolutely.
what I'm saying? Like, you gotta give back to your community any way you can.
Absolutely, my brother. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then plus, I'm the first person in my immediate household to get that college degree. My little brother is 15 years old, so he's up next.
Congratulations, my brother.
Indeed.
Congratulations on that. You know what I
He's an
mean?
honor
That's
roll
not
student
not
too.
easy. And tell him I said keep it up.
Indeed.
Tell him I said keep.
Yeah, man, no doubt. Now let's talk about when you got into coaching. Like, when did that
Yes.
begin?
So it's a great transition because when I stopped playing, I was working a camp at uh, uh, a tournament called, or not even a tournament, a basketball facility called Basketball City. And
In New
I'm just,
York.
nope, not the one in New York, the one in
Okay.
Boston.
All right.
They did one in Boston. Remember they started, I don't know if you're young enough to remember this, but they started doing mad different basketball cities
Mm-hmm.
in all cities. The first one started in NY, obviously, but then they did one in the Bean, there was one in Chicago, there was one in LA. So I would say back in like '09, once I was really done playing, I was at the basketball city camp ran by the Celtics, right? And I'm working some kids out. And, in the midst of just working some kids out, guy comes up to me, he's like, man, you ever think about coaching? And at that point, I'm like, nah, you know what I mean? Like, I'm 24 years old, bro. I'm fresh out of hooping and thinking that I still got it. Coaching never crossed my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So he hits me with it. Guy's name was Clyde Perry. I'll never forget this. He hits me with, well, listen, Joe, I'm watching you with the kids all week because the camp was a day camp. It was nine to 4 day camp. It
Mm-hmm.
was all day. You know what I mean? He had 2 kids at the camp. He's like, I'm watching you all week, man, and you just look like the kids are responsive. It looks like they're really paying attention to you and really, you know, basically vibing with you, man, more than the other camp counselors. So I'm like, man, I'm just trying to give these kids some knowledge and really, help them understand how to play. He was like, man, how about this? I'll put the money up. Won't you coach my kids over the summer? And my mind, I'm like, bro, we ain't got enough talent here for no AAU team. You know what I mean? Because I'm used to playing at my level. I'm not used to thinking about it from a travel basketball standpoint. So it
Mm-hmm.
started off, man. He ended up talking me into doing it. It started off as just 9 kids. It got better over the summer. We ended up winning the summer league championship, which was crazy. That fall, true story, I had a little tryout. I'm thinking about maybe 15, 20 kids are going to come, Dave, right?
Mm-hmm.
About 55 kids came. I had to create 3 or 4 different teams and then let some kids go because I didn't have enough manpower as far as coaches. So then what ended up happening was we started off as the Boston Spartans with just 2 or 3 teams. A year later, it went to 4 teams. A year later, 5 teams. And year 4 or 5, man, we had about 15 teams with about 4 girls teams. Brought my cousin Al Ruin, and then the thing just kind of took off, you know what I mean, faster than I ever thought, man, and to what you see now. Never in a million years did I think that we would have a program that we have now. I'd be lying to you if I said anything different.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't start it off for that reason, Dave. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like I didn't start it off to have the best program or one of the best independent programs in the country. I didn't start it off as that. It started off as just training and getting some kids off the street to just work out.
Yeah, man. Well said. So yeah, you also coach college basketball as well.
I
Talk a little
did.
bit about that.
I did. So um started to really things start to pick up about 4 or 5 years ago. We're 5, 6 years in from the AAU standpoint, right? And you know, a young man that I coached named Josh Morset. He's one of a top prospect in this area. He plays for a team program called Middlesex Magic, ran by a guy named Mike Crotty. His dad was a Division III coach, Dave Morset, really good man. Learned a lot from that guy. And he told me about a job that was open, about Pine Manor College. And, you know, what he ended up doing was telling me that I needed to apply for that job because he really thinks I'm ready to coach at that level. I put my name in the hat. He made a call to the AD, got the job. Now, this is what you're going to get a real kick out of, Dave. This is a true story, my brother. College basketball starts on October 15th. I got the job on October 14th.
My birthday. Wow.
Happy early birthday, my brother.
Wow.
I got the job on October 14th.
Wow.
A day before the season. Now, mind you, youngest coach in the conference, right? Youngest coach in the conference. School has never won a thing. I'm dealing with kids that some of them wanted the coach before them to go. Some of them didn't. So now, in the midst of trying to run a program, right? You're trying to form relationships with kids and you play in 2 weeks.
That's going to be difficult.
Oh, man, are you kidding me? So I'm running into a situation blind, but, you know, the kids bought in. It was rough at start. Kids bought in. We got our way to the conference tournament. We end up winning the thing. First time ever Pine Manor College has won a conference championship and hasn't won anything since. So I take a lot of pride in that because nobody would believe the extremes we had to go through, me and my staff, to make that happen. Wow. I mean, some dire circumstances, man.
That's crazy. Yeah. I feel for the non-Division I programs because a lot of these schools really don't have budgets like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But they will do everything in their power to help these kids. Whereas a lot of Division I schools, some of them have budgets, limited or unlimited.
Yep.
And some of these coaches, some of them probably will, the good ones, but then some of them have budgets and do nothing, unfortunately.
You're right. I seen it firsthand. Dave, one of the things that I learned about it is I had to play, for my budget, I had to play a Division I school every year, right? The first year we played Central Connecticut. Second year we played Sacred Heart. You know, my third year, we played Central Connecticut again. So those were money games for us. So as much as it gave my kids the experience of playing against low majors, you know, we got a decent check for those games because, like you said, you know, at the D3 level, there's no budget.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to get your kids gear, when you're trying to pay for meals, every little bit helps.
Indeed. Yeah, most definitely. I know all about those buy games firsthand because I was a student manager at St. Francis, Brooklyn for 3 years. Shout out to my school.
Yes, sir.
But
yes, sir.
I already know how those goes. I remember when we played, I heard the story from one of my coaches. When they beat this was 2013. So this was before I ever enrolled at St. Francis. So they played the University of Miami on the night that Miami put up that they won their rings. Long story short, they beat them and they got a check for $90,000.
See what I mean? So it's a win-win for St. Francis. You don't win that game, right? You give your kids the exposure of playing against a, high major.
Yeah.
You win the game, not only do you get a check for $90,000, but you get that win on your resume.
Exactly.
Come on, man.
They also that same year they played Syracuse. They lost, but they got a compliment from Boeheim after the game.
Good man, Jimmy B. Good man. A lot of great conversations with him over the last couple of years, recruiting some of our guys.
Yeah, man, most definitely. So yeah, you also coached in the Boston public school system. Talk a little bit about that.
I did. So that for me was good and bad. You know what I mean? And I'm always want to be as honest and upfront as I can be, with you, my brother. When I got my first job at Boston Public Schools, I was 25 years. I was a head assistant at West Roxbury High School. And there was a situation that occurred with a young man that, cost me my job because instead of handling the situation as an adult and as a coach, right, I handled it more like the kid. I was trying to reprimand a kid pretty much that wasn't one of my kids. And I had no business doing that. What I should have did, no matter how wrong the young man was, is I should have got his coach involved, and I should have told his coach to discipline his player the way he wanted to. But I didn't handle it like that. And unfortunately, being a young coach and being a guy that, doesn't do well with, the disrespect, it was a very similar situation to what Kyrie just did to the Celtics, which stomping the logo. And that's kind of what happened. And I, had some choice.
So that's the reason why they threw, I guess, the fans threw a water bottle at him or something like that.
Correct. But you have no business throwing anything at anybody, first of all, no matter how mad you are that he did that. And I shouldn't have said what I said to the young man, because as an adult at the time, and he's 16, 17 years old, I should have handled it differently. So we were on our way to winning a city championship. That's how good that team was that year. You know what I mean? So that was my first gig. My second gig was at Boston English High School, where I became the head coach and, carried the team back to the state tournament with some really, really good players. And the biggest thing I got out of that experience was it gave me a chance to really get some head coaching experience from a school standpoint. See, with AAU, a lot of the times you're busy with traveling and, just trying to coordinate two practices during the week for your kids. You don't get the daily interactions that you do as a high school coach. That's the one thing I think benefits high school coaches more so than the AAU coaches, Dave, is the high school coaches, especially if you work in the building, you interact with those teachers and the players, student athletes every day, as opposed to AAU, you don't get that, that opportunity. So I loved my time at English. I just thought that, you know what I mean? Unfortunately, the administration wasn't as passionate about athletics as I would have liked them to be. And, it just didn't work out from that standpoint. But from the players, from the parents, from the student body, shout out to Boston English, because those kids were great kids that deserved to play for a school and that really, really took the basketball program seriously.
Indeed. And that's the tough part, because whenever the administration is not on board, you already know it's about to come to an end.
Amen.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. But and this is another bonus question to this question.
Yep.
Why is it that a lot of kids in the city of Boston don't stay local? Why is
That's
it that a lot of these kids why are a lot of these kids going to the NEP side?
That's a great question, and I appreciate you asking me that. So I'm going to try to not make this answer as long-winded as it could be.
No, that's cool. Go ahead.
When my city gets back to giving the kids the services that once were provided for them, kids wouldn't leave. The reason why kids leave this city is because when you're told you can't work with your players from the last game of your high school season until the first day of tryouts, how does a kid get better? Those are one of the restrictions in Boston. You're not allowed to individually work with, legally, right? Work with your team or your players and workouts or coach them outside of a school-related event. So a lot of the better talent, those kids look at a prep school situation, right? NEPSAC, right? And they say, well, if I have 24-hour access to a gym, especially if I'm living on campus, right? And I have access to a weight room, I have access to a trainer, I have access to, things that I can't get in the city. If I'm a good enough student, why wouldn't I go ahead and go play for a prep school? That's what we haven't figured out in my city. These kids wouldn't leave home if they were just awarded the same opportunities that the kids at the NEPSAC schools are awarded. It's that simple, Dave. It wouldn't be an issue of, oh, well, I can't stay home because if I stay home, I'm not going to get the same benefit that the kid that goes to Thayer Academy or the kid that goes to Brewster or the kid that goes to New Hampton, they get. You know what I mean? It's really sad because our city league is nowhere near where it could be, man, if all the talent stayed in Boston. You're talking about, and I'll just run down some names of the last 10 years and it'll blow your mind. You're talking Terrence Clark, God, rest in peace. You're talking Wayne Selden. You're talking Shabazz Napier. You're talking, Renee Castro, Nerlens, Good Luck. You go down the line, you go down the line of guys that, could have stayed in this city as opposed to going the prep route, and how much. Okay, so,
all right.
Yeah, what I was saying was you can't be mad at a kid, right, for wanting to be given the best opportunities to grow. And unfortunately, right now, the best opportunities, right, and it's just being real, the best opportunities right now for kids are 1,000% to go the NEPSAC route. If the city allowed our coaches, we got some great coaches in the city. If they allowed our coaches to work with our players, the young men, and allowed them to, to mentor them the right way, not just when the season's in line, right? Man, city would get so much more notoriety. Again, as I mentioned, you got names in the last 5 to 10 years of guys that if they stay in the city would have so much more notoriety, starting with Terrence Clark, Wayne Selden, a young man, Good Luck, Shabazz Napier. You just go down a list of names of kids that were born and raised in this city that would have had no problem staying here if, the same benefits and opportunities were awarded to them at a BPS, a Boston Public School.
Yeah, most definitely, man. But yeah. So we're gonna transition into hold on. Yeah, so we're gonna go into Team Spartans now. So
yes, sir.
Let's talk about the origins of the program, like when you guys first started.
Yeah, so how we first started, as I mentioned before, the biggest thing for us was how it grew into 1-2 teams, as I told you when I first started, right? And I had no intention on this thing being what it is now. We started out as just a program that wanted to train and mentor young men to be the best they could be. And then Dave, again, parents in the city, and then started paying attention, and then it grew from, like I told you, 1 to 2 teams to where you're talking about now we have approximately 20 teams. And I have kids, as you know now, coming from Connecticut, New Hampshire to play for me. So I had to change the name from Boston Spartans to Team Spartans because
which makes sense.
This thing has become, man, it's become a New England thing. It's not just, kids in my city, right? So, the goal, and our mission statement is to change these young men's lives using basketball as a vehicle to get them an education. You know what I mean? If you're good enough to play after college, then God bless you, and we're going to promote that. But our job is to make sure you get an education, you know what I mean, because of your basketball ability. And if you have to use that as a vehicle to do that, then so be it.
Yeah, man, I hear that. So, let's talk about, fast forwarding to today. You guys have had, a lot of success throughout these last couple of years. You guys have done it independently. So, what's the secret to being an independent program?
There's no secret, D. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's loyalty and love. I got a shirt on. I'm gonna give it to you when I see you.
All right.
It's Team Spartan shirt right here that you see, and on the
Mm-hmm.
back of my shirt, it says loyalty and love.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tell you, I can't offer kids an EYBL stage or Peach Jam, but what I can offer you is the best schedule, especially if you play on our national teams, that you're gonna play unless you play for a Nike program.
Mm-hmm.
And then from a basketball coaching standpoint, you know what I mean? This is not to belittle anybody else. I just don't think anyone, you know, in my area, right, is running college level style practices and workouts. We are.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We spend a lot of time teaching the game. It's not just getting the best player and rolling the ball out and playing. And I get it. You know, that's kind of the AAU culture now. You go
Right.
get the best players and you put five together and play. That's never been our style. And I think, you know, because this group, you know, my son and Donovan and those guys have been together so long, they're beating all these teams that quote unquote they shouldn't beat because
Right.
of that. So the origin of the program and what we stand for, as you said, the secret is no secret, man. It's just you got to have guys that, you know, are loyal and want to be a part of something bigger than themselves and be a part of something that at the end of the day they can remember for the rest of their lives, as opposed to just, okay, I hoop with this dude in the spring and summer. It was cool, but there's no relationship outside of that.
Indeed, man. So, hold on.
Time back on and when it cuts off.
So, let's talk about how, like, the sneaker companies. Has anybody ever tried to, like, has any of the sneaker companies reached out to you guys?
Yeah, so we had a conversation with Under Armour before. We had a conversation with Adidas. I've never had the pleasure of speaking with anybody from Nike, but you know, from a merging standpoint, there's two programs in our area that there was two separate occasions where there was going to be a merger, but you know, I wish all those guys the best, but just from a philosophy standpoint and the way that I do things, and I'm not saying their way's right or wrong, I'm not saying my way's right or wrong, I'm just saying the philosophies didn't marry each other. So that's kind of why at this point there's been no merger in terms of the two programs in my area. But I would love to have a conversation with Nike because I just want to, you know, I would love for them to realize that for us, we've been doing it at this level with no sponsorship and really no type of, you know, funding.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So imagine, Dave, and this is not being cocky, it's just being honest. Imagine what we could do and what we could be if we had that kind of backing behind us. Think about it.
Yeah.
That's all I say. Just think about it. There's no reason why we should be doing what we're doing with no real funding behind us. It's almost unheard of.
Most definitely. For the simple fact that, you know, I kind of equate, you know, these teams getting deals to rap to mute, like artists getting deals. You know what I'm saying? Like,
hey,
in the beginning,
man.
you probably, like, basically that artist may get that, they may have success early on after that first album, but that after a while they don't deliver on the next album, that business drops them. That company moves on and goes on to another different direction. Now these sneaker companies are no different. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just with in the case of the AAU programs, you guys have to have the players, you know, you got to keep them coming around. You know what I'm saying? You got to produce year after year. You know what I'm saying? Because I've seen a lot of these programs come and go. Like, one year they're here, and then next you don't hear from them anymore because the program either folded or that program lost their deal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, man. So yeah, everybody, we're gonna pause real quick, but don't worry, we'll be right back after this. Well, everybody, we back now after our commercial break. So yeah, coach, let's continue. So yeah, basically these deals are a means to an end. You know, The good thing about independent programs like yours is you guys are able to do things your way and don't have to be controlled by a sneaker sponsor, which is unfortunately the fate of a lot of everybody's favorite AAU programs, unfortunately.
Yep, you're right, brother. At the end of the day, Dave, you know, as much as I want to be on that circuit, the one thing, like you said, that benefits us is we're not confined to anything. We're able to kind of come and go as we please. You know what I mean? But you know, again, the power of being able to say you're on that circuit, you know, to the young man's mind, you're thinking that that's the end all be all. You know what I mean? Like, could young men really believe if I play in Peach Jam, I'm going to get a scholarship? They're not understanding that maybe the top 3 or 4 guys might get scholarships. The rest of the guys are going to have to scratch and claw like everybody else to get a scholarship. You know what I mean? Like everybody that plays, you know what I mean, Peach Jam or plays in Peach Jam doesn't end up going to Duke. That's the false narrative that's out there because of social media. You know what I mean?
That's very true. Like in reality, unfortunately, they don't walk away with a scholarship. All they walk away with the gear. Let's just keep it 100, because a lot of these kids they play at the highest level. They played at Peach Jam, but yeah, they didn't really benefit from that. And plus, if you really look at it, these assistant coaches, you know what I'm saying, they already go there with, you know, the kids that they're already looking at. You know what I'm saying? And they have to figure out, you know, what's best for their programs. And they really don't want to recruit a kid that has no intention of coming into their school. You know, so if a kid, you know, pops off, if he pops at that at said event, that would be great for them. But you know, there's some kids that don't even get off the bench either. So that's another thing. Oh, coach, you muted.
I'm sorry, man. Might have hit that by accident.
That's
I said
cool.
no. I said you're absolutely right. I mean, with the false narrative, because of social media is if I just am on a roster, I'm getting a scholarship, and it just doesn't work that way, D.
At all. Yeah, at all. Now, you know, let's talk a little bit about Donovan Klingen. You know,
Yes, sir.
Talented 7-footer, ranked
Yes,
in the
sir.
ESPN top 100. You know, talked about what it's been like coaching him and what it's been like basically how his play has affected the program.
That's a great question. It's 2 separate questions. So I'm going to talk about what it's like coaching him, and then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how he's affected the program, because those are 2 great questions. Coaching Donovan has probably been one of the best things that I've ever done as a coach, because I've never coached a kid at the grassroots level that has had as much or gotten as much attention as him. He's taught me so much. I know he would, if he was on his podcast, he would say, I taught him so much and this, that. I'm telling you, that young man has taught me so much, Dave. He's allowed me to coach him hard, which makes it easier to coach the other guys. And I know, you know what I mean, that's such a cliche when your best player allows you to coach him, the other guys got to fall in line, but it doesn't fall true to everybody. And I think we know that. With this young man, it falls true, because he never puts himself above the team, the program. You know, the guy on his left, the guy on his right. That's just not his makeup. How I recruited him was one of the guys that was already playing for me from the Connecticut area, Matthew Curtis Sr., whose son is, you know, obviously, you know, our starting shooting guard on that 17U team. He was looking at his local paper one day and remembered that there was a kid at Bristol, a kid lived in Bristol that was really good, but that was a big kid. And he I was at my office at Pine Man at the time, and he sent me a screenshot of this kid's stat line as a freshman, a true freshman. I want to say it was something like 22 and 21 with like 7 blocks. You know what I mean? As a 14-year-old kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw it and was like, who the hell is that? And he told me the kid played at Bristol Central. He was playing that Tuesday night. I left Pine Manor practice at literally 5:45 when we was done. I got to Bristol Central about 7:15. I was late for the game, but I got there. And I talked to his dad for about 5 minutes after the game, talked to Don for about 5 minutes of the game. They rejected me at first. And I know they remember that. They rejected me, because they wanted to stay with their friends in Bristol. And he was playing for a local AU team at the time that his friends was on. And he didn't see what I saw for him because he's not a cocky kid and he wasn't getting all this national attention. So in his mind, he's like, I can play with my friends. I can just play locally. And now, you know what I mean? Whatever happens, happens. What I saw when I saw a kid was I said, he's the best big I've seen at that level. And I've seen Andre Drummond up close. I've seen Nerlens up close. I've seen some, high-level NBA guys up close and personal. At 14, 15 years old, he was the best I've seen. And there's no hesitation saying that to you.
Mm-hmm.
I just kept recruiting them. And we played that high school season out. I finished my season at Pine Manor. We played against them in a zero gravity tournament in New England, in Massachusetts. During that tournament, we were talking to them a little bit more. Then after our game, we played each other in the semifinal. He realized what kind of team we had. I think he had a chance to see up close and personal what kind of coach I was. And from that point forward, I want to say May 2018 or 17, might have been 18, his freshman year. He's been with us ever since. And he's been the most humble kid to coach and be around. In terms of how he's changed the program, to answer that question, single-handedly has elevated the program to another level. You know as well as I do, because you've been doing this for a little while, when you have a top 100 kid, in our case, a top 40 kid, people pay attention. As good as my son is, as good as Matt Curtis is, as good as Temi O'Toole is, as good as Keontae Bales is, Hayden Abdullah, all the guys on his team can play. We wouldn't be what we are if guys couldn't play, if it was just the Donovan Klingen show. But having a kid that's a top 100 kid, top 50 kid, people pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's done that for us. That's the answer in a nutshell, is that he's giving us the national attention that otherwise we probably would still be having to scratch and claw for.
Yeah. And matter of fact, I was on the Spartans website the other day, or as a matter of fact today, and I saw that you guys played against Strive for Greatness.
Yes.
In Vegas.
Yes.
And I guess, if I'm not mistaken, you guys might have beaten them.
We did.
Wow. Like, how did it feel beating them?
So the game before, you want to laugh.
Okay.
I don't know if you were watching ESPN that summer a lot, but LeBron was in the layup lines dunking.
Yeah, okay. I saw that.
The game before us. So when we had beat a great D1 NYC Adidas team.
Okay, yeah. I know them.
Game before. Okay. We had beaten them, so I was able to we were at another location in Vegas. I was able to get to the Strive for Greatness game against a team from New Zealand. That was pretty good. Freshman team. And, that crowd was electric because obviously LeBron's son, you got Dior, you got all these other 4 or 5-star kids. You got Bronny, you got LeBron sponsoring the group, whatever. LeBron's in the layup line dunking. And I'm like, yo, man, it's going to be hard for anybody to beat them because let's be real. When the best player on the planet at the time, right, is in the layup lines dunking with the opposing team, that can intimidate a 15-year-old. I don't care who you are. Let's be real. You see LeBron James in the layup lines dunking. You know what I mean? Basically having his own personal dunk contest with the team. That can intimidate you. So they blow the doors off the New Zealand team. The game before, we're warming up, getting ready to play them about 2 hours later, typical AAU event. And I can remember somebody from Strive for Greatness saying that, it's been a good ride, but, this is where the buck stops here. Basically something and I said, what? I said, pretty cocky because I don't know if you ever seen this team from New England, but we'll see what happens when the game starts.
And this is a coach that said this to you.
Yeah, one of the assistants, but it wasn't malice behind it.
Yeah, he was just talking that
right.
smack. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, D, but it was still like, we're strive for greatness. You know
right,
what I mean?
Exactly.
We're EYBL, with it's that number 5 team in the country at the time. And I was like, all right, we'll see what happens when the ball tips up. So they jump on us early, go 4-0. We never look back from there. It might to this day still be, and my son's played some really good games. It might be to this day the best game, my top to bottom, that my son's played going against a 5-star point guard like Dior. Really, really took it to him. And the shocking part, people wouldn't believe this until you watch the film on YouTube. No Maddie and no Donovan. Maddie had a family reunion and Donovan had a family emergency, I believe. So he didn't attend Vegas.
Wow. You guys beat them without Matt and Donovan. That's amazing.
True story.
That's amazing. Wow.
True story.
Yeah.
True story.
So yeah, I'm gonna segue into a former player, Gavin Griffiths, who's now with Expressions.
Yeah, man.
I know it was very difficult losing Gavin, but talk about what it was like coaching him during his time with the program.
So GG is a very good player, but he's a better person, right? Matt Curtis, again, put me on to him being a CT guy. He played with Larry Griffiths, Gavin's dad, at the University of Hartford with Vinny Baker, and those good teams they had in the early 90s. So Gavin was kind of paying attention to what was going on with the Larry, was paying attention to what was going on with the program before the COVID stuff. Gavin's freshman year. And, we were able to get Gavin to a practice, and Dad was blown away by what we were doing at our practices, the high level, the intensity, just how much the kids really, got after it. And, Gav was here for about 7 to 8 months, man. And he was another guy who, I told a lot of the high major schools that I was talking to at the time, Dave, like, I think we got another one. I think the kid has effortless game. I told him if he plays with a motor all the time, he's going to get paid to play. That's how much confidence I have in him and how good of a player I think he is with his size and his skill set. Can't lie and act like, it didn't hurt losing him, because to me, and I know he has a guy on his team that's ranked higher than him, but to me, he's the most complete kid in that class, from top to bottom. I think if you watch the games, you could tell, 3-ball handle, IQ, score at all 3 levels of the floor. Got to be better on-ball defender, but a great off-ball defender in terms of being able to help out, block shots, getting lanes. So yeah, he's a very good player. Wish he was still here, but how the AAU game works, he decided that Expression would be a better fit for him, and we respect the decision, although we wish he was here.
Indeed, man. Shout outs to Gavin. I seen you at Kahari Buford's open run in Hartford earlier this year. This kid, he got some special talent. So looking forward to seeing you on the circuit, my guy. But anyway, you have some.
Kahari is a former Spartan. I don't know if
you
knew
that's
that.
right. Yeah, he did.
Yes,
he
sir.
did mention that. Yeah, he actually. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, so he actually wore your gear recently, and a couple of your video guys were at the open run in Hartford. I distinctly remember that day.
Yes, Kahari is a Spartan to his heart, man.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to my guy. Stand Your Ground League, New Britain, Connecticut, June 19th. Everybody be there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, moving forward, to some of the other players. So let's talk about Torrent Bosworth, Kalu Anya, Hayden Abdullah, whom I also saw at that open run. Tony Felder Jr., Keontae Bills, and Matt Curtis. Tell me what each of them brings to the team.
Man, I'll start with Hayden. I think Hayden gets overlooked sometimes because he's 6'9", and he's playing behind, Donovan and with him, his role gets diminished sometimes because you don't see the value he brings. But Hayden's a kid who I think is oozing with potential. I think he's not even scratching the surface of how good he's going to be. And I think wherever he ends up going to school is going to be a steal because he's a 6'9" guard. He can shoot it. He has long arms, as you saw.
Mm-hmm.
He has a 6'11", 7-foot wingspan. I mean, there's not much on a basketball court he can't do. I mean, Hayden's only person that can stop Hayden is Hayden. That's how much game he has. He just has to, pull it out of himself all the time. Sometimes that motor isn't where you want it to be, and he's working on that. You know what I mean? He's getting so much better with that. Torrent Bosworth is probably the best shooter in the class of 2022. When you're talking about pure shooters, I don't think there's many better. Lefty stroke, unselfish kid, can get a shot off against anyone. And, to me, his biggest attribute is the fact that he can shoot the ball from anywhere. I think sometimes with shooters, you get labeled as a guy that's just a spot up shooter. Torrent can shoot the ball off the move. Torrent can shoot it off the dribble. Torrent can shoot it, off pen down screens, up screens, however you want it, he can give it to you. And defensively, he's a bulldog. So he showed that against, Mikey Williams and that crew when we played We All Can Go down in Kansas City. Matt Curtis, you follow our Twitter. You've heard me say it over the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. When I recruited him as an 8th grader, I said this to his dad, and his dad knows this. He's the best 3-level scorer in the class in New England to me. That guy makes the hardest shots look easy. 1-legged floaters, 2-legged floaters, step backs, 3 balls, gets to the line, tough as nails, has a swagger that's through the roof. And he's starting to finally get the recognition I think that he deserves because people are starting to see him more on a national scale. I think in New England, we know how good he is, but on a national scale, people are starting to see him. Keontae's a kid that, lived with my wife and I when he's not, in Canada. He's originally from Canada. His mom is still resident of Halifax. Keontae is a kid who, again, defensive stalwart, probably our best on-ball defender. Gets after it defensively. He's probably our quarterback on defense too, because he's the vocal leader of the group. He's not afraid to voice his opinion, and he definitely, gets the group to communicate defensively, offensively, before games, after games. He's a great communicator. Sometimes he's a little aggressive with how he does it, but I prefer you to be an aggressive communicator, right, as opposed to a guy that doesn't say anything. So, I think he's going to have a big July to continue to go down the line. Temi O'Toole, probably the unsung hero of my team. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that averages 17 points in high school. On my team, he might take 3 shots a game, but he has 5 steals, 4 blocks, 3 charges, and he's guarding the other team's best wing or low post guy every game. And always is looking for that challenge. Never complain. He's been on the team as long as I've had the team together with my son's group when they started 5th grade. Timmy's been here that long. So, it's going to be, I don't know if I'm ever going to have the pleasure of coaching a kid who will sacrifice so much for the team. And I think he's a steal of the Ivy League situation because I think that he'll be an all-conference kid by the time he's a junior. Mm-hmm. I think he could be a 2-year all-conference guy at the Ivy League level. We got a new kid named Will Johnson from Springfield who is special. He doesn't have any idea how good he really is yet because he's never really played at this level. Will is the kid who, played at Springfield Central, goes to Apollo Freed now. So the competition's solid, right? But it's not what this is. He's used to being the best athlete on the floor. And I think what he's realizing now is that, combine your athleticism with, a high IQ, and you're a guy that's going to be able to play scholarship basketball because, you know, he can run, he can jump, you know what I mean? He's super aggressive defensively, and he's electric in transition.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, lastly, you know, just going to my son, you know, everybody thinks he gets it easy, you know, because he's the coach of a son. He's son of a coach, sorry, but they don't realize that I'm harder on Tony than I am on all the guys. You know, and I'm hard on my son because I feel like because of his size at 5'9", he has so much more to prove because A, he's the coach's son. B, you're playing with all these other Division I prospects, so people really question how good are you? Are you making these guys look good, or do they make you look good because you're playing with studs? You know what I mean? So for me, his work ethic is unmatched. Everything he's ever gotten on a basketball court, he's earned. Nobody can ever say that my son has been given anything because he hasn't.
Right.
You know, he continues to get better every day, which is something that as a dad, I admire because I always tell him, never settle for what you were yesterday. I think he's going to have an explosive, you know, summer as well.
Okay. Yeah, shout outs to Tony Felder Jr., man. That kid is special.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Yeah, man. I love watching him out in Dallas. Yo, man, like he was quick. How's his nose? Cause I know I know that was an issue during
Yeah.
that game.
Yeah. So how about this? He played 3.5 games with a broken nose, you know, and as you know, we weren't really able to give our best down there because Keontae and Torrent got hurt. Torrent averages about 15 points off the bench for us.
Mm-hmm.
And Keontae is my best one-on-one defender. So we play a great Middlesex Magic team and beat them with both of those guys hurt, and Tony has a broken nose. So that tells you the toughness of him. You know, again, take the dad part away from it. For him to play with a broken nose with no mask because we weren't able to get back to Boston and get him a mask, he played like that all weekend and never complained.
That's crazy. I mean, he's
It
a tough
is.
kid, man.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. That level, the teams we played with a broken nose.
Yeah, man. So you guys have been playing on the hoop group circuit, you know, in a couple tournaments. Like,
yes, sir.
Talk about the hoop group showcase league, if that's what they call it.
Yes, it's the HGSL. You got it. So first off, before I get into the hoop group, the showcase league, Rob and Eric have been everything I could ask for and more. Shout out to Rob Kennedy and Eric Kelsler, especially Eric. You know, Eric and I talk at least once or twice every week. Everything that he said he was going to help do for my team and my program, he's done. He's a man of his word, and in his business, you don't meet many guys like that because everybody's always looking for something. That's why I will always be in debt to him, because 2.5 years ago, he told me what our team was. He was the first person to see this vision. You know, this 2022 group I have now, he said, Joe, that's a top 10 team in the country. And I said, Eric, you know, we're good, but I don't know if we're there yet. You know what I mean? And he said, no, Joe, that's a top 10 team in the country, because we swept through the hoop group thing that year at 15U. We didn't lose a game on the circuit. And then the COVID year came last year, but we were still playing up when we could and did well playing against 17, 18-year-olds at the 16U level. And then coming in this year, he's done everything he said he was going to do and more. And, you know, as you've seen, he's ran some incredible events. For us, the last one we played was Pittsburgh. We didn't go to Virginia. I wish we would have, because it was such a great event, but Dallas was a great event as well. Pittsburgh was amazing. We got a chance to compete against, to me, the standard of Nike basketball and team takeover, and got a big time win against those guys. We beat a well-coached, team Rio team with 3 or 4 high majors. Mike Rice, who's a great coach out of, the New Jersey area, used to coach Rutgers. He's a good man as well. We were able to beat them in a championship, and really elevate and elevate our program and show people that, when healthy and when we have everybody, I think we're, a top 10, top 15 team in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not stepping on anybody else. It's just the confidence that I have in the group because we prepared so well in Hoop Group. I mean, Hoop Group does such a good job of scheduling the right teams against each other and the levels. There's no cupcake games. You know what I mean? Like if you beat somebody by 15, 20 points, it's because your team played really, really well that weekend. It's not because the team you're playing against is horrible. You know what I mean? So shout out to those guys for doing a great job as usual. And we're looking forward to a big time, July with those guys because there's some very, very good events going on in July.
Indeed. Now, before we get into where you guys are going to be in July, let's talk about Kansas City. So you guys play We All Can Go. Talk about that game.
So without taking away from those guys, Dave, I love what We All Can Go is doing. You know what I mean? They're doing a good job with a lot of the media attention they're getting and a lot of the guys that they have. Let's call it what it is. They can play.
Yeah.
But we lost the game 67-68. And in my opinion, we didn't play well. And we lost by a point. Mikey is a very, very special athlete. Athletically, he's super, super gifted. Chris Livingston is special. He's a number 2 or number 3 player in the country now, whatever he is, for a reason. There were really no weaknesses in his game. I mean, he made tough 2s, tough 3s to keep them in it because we were getting away from him for a little while. It was a 9 or 10 for a while. And then they have a 5-star big that's really good. I forget his name. But, I mean, he really could play and really, push Donovan probably better than any big we played against this year. I mean, that kid is a 5-star for a reason. But it was a great experience for us. I mean, we won a lot of those games. Unfortunately, we lost that one. And due to how well We All Can Go play down the stretch. I would love to get a chance to see him again because I think that, our boys would be up for the challenge. But we'll see what happens in July. Hopefully, we can cross paths again.
So, yeah, what are some events that people can watch you guys in July?
So the first live period weekend of July 8th through the 11th, we will be down in Atlantic City and Spooky Nuke. Hoop Group's doing 2 big events in the New Jersey and Pennsylvania areas then. And then the second weekend, which I believe is the 16th through the 18th, if I'm not mistaken, we'll be in New Jersey again. And then that third weekend, I think it's confirmed already, which is the last live period weekend, will be in Atlantic City again. They're going to have the HGSL finale where, you win the league championship if you're blessed enough to be in the game and make it that far. They're going to do it there in Atlantic City, that venue. Not sure if you've ever been to Hoop Group's event, venue down there, but I mean, it's 9 courts, Dave, and it's beautiful, beautiful venue. It kind of reminds you of Williams a little bit. Just a little bigger. Very kind of similar setup.
Yeah, no doubt. So I'm gonna definitely come. If you guys are in Atlantic City, I might as well take a day trip to come down there.
Yes, sir.
Just get on that Greyhound or New Jersey Transit, and I'll be there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Indeed.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, so this is one of the questions that I love to lead up to. Before the final question, if you could go back in a time machine to 2009, what would you tell a young Joe Chapman at 24 as he's finishing playing basketball and has started up coaching on the college and high school levels, but is also building a great program in Team Spartans?
That's a great question. I've never been asked that before. That's pretty good, Dave. Wow, what would I tell a young Joe Chapman? My wife would kill me for saying this, but I'm going to say it. For me, man, it's just be a little bit more patient. Something that my wife hasn't heard from me for a while. Be a little more patient. I think, Dave, when I first started this thing, it was just originally about like working out and getting kids better. But then when you get a taste of this, man, and you're a competitor and you're still young enough to really play and compete, you know, you lose sight a little bit of what the big picture of this thing's about. And I think for a while, I'm not gonna lie, I did. You know, I'm a competitive, you know what I mean? And, you know, I think as a young coach, I was ultraly aggressive because I wanted results. I was thinking, you know, what we call the short game. I wasn't thinking long game. So I would definitely be a little bit more patient as a 24, 25-year-old starting his own program. And I would definitely lean on people. The second thing I would do a little bit is lean on the people that I love and trust. I had a guerrilla mentality when I first started because, you know, unfortunately, when you're in this business, as you know what I mean, doing what you do, people try to tear you down, man, and you don't understand why. And then it gets to a point, instead of understanding why, you build this defense mechanism, right? Where you're like, you know what? I'm just going to guerrilla my way through this thing. And if I offend somebody, I offend you, but this is how I'm going to do it. And it's like, you don't have to be that way all the time. You know what I mean? So those are the two things I would say for sure, Dave, that I would be, you know what I mean? I would advise a younger Joe Chapman to be patient, right? And to lean on people that you really, really admire and trust.
Indeed. Final question. What's next in the future for Joe Chapman and Team Spartans?
Hey, man, future. We're just trying to get every single kid on this team a scholarship so that when they're done playing, they can leave their legacy as the greatest Spartan team ever, first of all. A brotherhood where they can, you know, be at each other's weddings and christenings with their kids and, you know, birthday parties when they're in their 30s and 40s. And, you know, ultimately build bonds that last forever. If we win the hoop group, you know, circuit championship, great. If when we go to Vegas or Orlando, we win those big events down there, great. But I think that for us, making sure that these young men go to college for free and that they can experience what you and I experience, rocking across that stage, getting a bachelor's, and hopefully getting something beyond that if they choose to. That's the ultimate goal for us.
Indeed. Coach, thank you for coming on to share your testimony, and I wish you and the Spartans nothing but the best moving forward.
Dave, my man, I appreciate you having us. And before I go, I want to say shout out to guys like DC for doing this the right way. That's why when you asked me, my brother, in Dallas, if I would do this, not sure if I mentioned these to you earlier, I have 2 younger kids on top of Tony, so my time is limited. We just kicked it for an hour and a half, an hour and 145, my brother. And I would do it again with you because I believe you're one of the young brothers in this business doing it the right way. We, the Spartans, me as the director and the leader of the program, we admire you. I can speak for my partner, Al Rue, who's not on this podcast. We admire you. We love you, brother. Keep doing what you're doing. We hope to see you in the next couple of weeks.
Indeed. Well, everybody, this is episode 127 of Hoops Talk with Dave's Joint. Shout outs to my guy, Joe Chapman, for coming on to tell his story. For those in the city of Boston, you know, that support this man, go check out this interview on YouTube, Facebook, and IGTV. And also go support the Spartans moving forward. And, you know, shout outs to the inaugural class of the of Team Spartans, a.k.a. the class of 2022. Best of luck to you guys this summer. I will be watching. Stay safe, stay blessed. Peace.
My brother.